Hey, good morning. It is summertime and it is the time of year where if you're in air conditioning sales, roofing, plumbing, sewer replacements, chances are really good right now that you've got some big opportunities for when it comes to the replacement sale. Chances are also really good right now that you've also got some barriers that you need to overcome. Specifically, the barrier of the budget or the assumption as to what the budget is going to be. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You go into a home, you know in your mind that what the homeowner is going to be looking at is going to be a sizable investment, but you can tell either because of their lack of education on the subject or because of some poor bids that have been given somewhere else that somewhere in their mind there is a budget. There is a barrier, if you will. If you want to think of the budget as a barrier, there is a number that they don't want to go beyond. And chances are good that when it comes to your value based company, your number is going to be bigger than their barrier. So, what I want to talk to you about this morning is how to break the mental barrier of a budget that actually isn't going to do the trick. It's not going to get the client to where they need to be if it's going to be doing business with you. Now, it goes without saying that this is all part of a great and well-planned presentation of which there are many steps, and I'm not going to tackle every single step. Instead, I'm going to keep it very focused on three things. Number one, I'm going to keep it focused on how do you know the unspoken. Number two, how do you discover the barrier? And then number three, how do you break it down? And I'm going to give you two techniques to breaking it down. So the first thing is this: know the unspoken. Know the unspoken. And what I mean by that is know that there is a barrier. Now, what's interesting is that your client literally may not have defined that budgetary barrier to themselves as of yet. They may not have said, well, I absolutely won't do anything that's over this number. It may not have been a conversation because they may not even have known at the point in which you speak with them that they might need a replacement, right? So if you are a selling technician, for the sake of example, the client may not even be going there mentally because they may be thinking that it's a repair only, and yet you discover that it's bigger than that. So know that there is an unspoken or even an unthought of mental barrier with every single client. You just have to be aware of that. Never assume the sky's the limit because it's not. So when you realize that there is a barrier, what that means is that you have to move to number two. You have to discover what that barrier is. You have to discover what that barrier is. Now, obviously, that means that before you discover the barrier, the client has moved into a mindset to where they understand that they might be looking at replacing this roof or this electric panel or this air conditioning system or this sewer line. So they're already there because you've done a great job of presenting that. All right, so now what we literally want to do is we want to discover the barrier. Now, there are a couple techniques to this, and one of the things I'd recommend to you, just as simple and as straightforward as it is that you just ask the client, do they have a budget in mind? Now, you'll want to rephrase this question depending upon the situation that you're in. If I'm a client, or pardon me, if I'm a technician or a sales professional, and I'm there with a client that has called us for the purpose of a sales replacement, like they know that they need one because they've come to this decision or themselves or someone else has influenced them, my question is going to be worded in such a way that I'm recognizing the scenario that we're in. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, John and Betty, if you're on first name, thank you so much for calling us out here today. Really appreciate this opportunity to propose a new comfort system for you. Hey, one of my questions for you is, in this consideration, what type of budget did the two of you have in mind to get the replacement system that you're looking for? So literally, just ask them the budget. Don't beat around the bush. They know what they're there for. Just ask them. Let's look at it slightly different. Let's imagine that we're in a scenario to where, as a technician, you've brought them to this point. They thought that they were potentially looking at only repairing, and now they realize that replacement might also be part of the equation. You still have to break down and discover the barrier. And you'll want to acknowledge that in terms of the scenario that you're in. Hey, Mrs. Smith, I know that we're just now moving into the concept of replacing this air conditioning system where it wasn't initially a conversation that we had in mind prior. Let me ask you, in the past, if you've ever considered this before and thought about what a new system might be. Now, that's one way to do it. Completely open-ended, leaving it to the homeowner to give the information back to you. Now, you may also prefer to not go open-ended. You may prefer to do what many professionals do, which is at the end of the open-ended question, go ahead and give them multiple choices to pick from. And in that way, you would give them 3 to 4 ranges that you know, depending upon the type of system that they would select, you would fit into one of those 3 to 4 ranges. Those ranges can be done by total, although I'd recommend instead of going at full total, you'd actually talk about it in terms of financing, because that's a much easier number to mentally wrap your head around. Okay, so let's move on to the third one, which is break it down. And I'm kind of dipping into that a little bit. When I'm saying break it down, the mental barrier, what essentially I'm referring to you here is that you're going to end up facing some resistance. You may face that resistance after you ask that question, and the client really has no idea, right? They may have zero concept going back to the scenario of you're the person that unveiled to them through your diagnostic that they might need a replacement, or the client might have ideas, but they just don't want to say it to you. In their mind, that's their secret, and they're not going to tell you. So there's a couple approaches that you can do. One is you can blow it up. I'll explain that. And the other one is you can chip away. So if we talk about blowing up the barrier, what we are really doing is we're really talking about just facing the homeowner's objection. And it might sound like this: hey, Mrs. Smith, just out of curiosity, did you have a budget in consideration for when it came to this project? And if you did, were you thinking that it would be somewhere between, give them a range, right? Give them a range, pause, wait for the homeowner to respond. Maybe the homeowner responds back with some sort of objection, which is, I have no idea. I was hoping that you were going to tell me that. I would rather not say. And then you go, okay, no worries. Well, would you be prepared to invest as much as? And then you go to the high end of your budget range. This is blowing it up, right? You go upper limit. You watch for their body language response. Don't just listen to the words. Listen to the body language to see if you hit that barrier or if you blew past that barrier. Oftentimes when you do that, when you go really high, what you've done is you've established an anchor point to where you've said, Mrs. Smith, Mr. John, Betty, know that it could be up here. The homeowner may have had their anchor point down here, and what you've done just by doing that is you've actually moved them up the line. So you're blowing up the barrier. The other approach is to chip away, which is to chip away. And chipping away might be something that you might utilize in both scenarios, to where instead of just blowing up the barrier, you might use both in combination, but instead you start painting a picture. John, I know you've never had a sewer replacement done before. And when you look at sewer replacements, there's a number of things that are going to go into that investment. And then you define what those things would be. Every area is different, so I'm going to keep it kind of loose and general here. But John, when it looks at sewer replacement, some of the things that you're going to be looking for is how long does the sewer have to run? That's going to be part of it. We're also going to be looking at the depth, because that's how much that we've got to figure out how much we've got to dig. Now, in addition to the total foot across and down that we have to dig, we also want to consider what's in the way. Things like trees with their roots, things like large rocks. All of these things can have an effect on the difficulty of the dig. So what you begin to do is you begin to describe the parameters of what can raise and or lower an install price, and you just don't talk about the technical side of it. You want to layer in things that are specific and unique to your company. And as you do this, you begin to describe in monetary values how that increases or decreases the total investment. This is chipping away at those mental barriers, because the reality is that most homeowners are probably going to be here in their thought process, and you have to get them here through technique and through presentation. So this summer, as you were thinking through all of these things, utilize this one technique, because it's going to serve you well. And if you want to load up your arsenal with more techniques, then what I recommend that you do is consider attending one of our Press Play for Sales programs. It is a fantastic way to find whatever the challenges that you are having and just break them down so that you get armed with techniques that you can use in the field to boost your personal income and to live out your dreams. As we say, we turn learning into earning, but what you're earning is up to you. Maybe that means you're turning learning into a new home or college education for your kids or debt freedom. That's up to you. You turn learning into earning, and earning is what you desire it to be. All right, that is it for today. If you like it, you know what to do. Let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button. Share it up everywhere. And if you're interested in attending one of our programs, then look in the descriptions. You'll see a link to the program. Or reach out to us if you want. You can call us at that phone number, or you can hit us up at our website. Thank you very much. This is Todd Liles, and go turn learning into earning.